his mind swirling with confusion and curiosity. The woman he had known for years, his loyal maid, always silent, always in the background, was no longer a simple caretaker. She had revealed something he hadn't expected. A woman uncovers the painful truths hidden by her father, forcing her to confront years of betrayal and lies. With the support of a man who has stood by her side, she finds the strength to break free and rebuild her life. But we start the video, let us know where you're watching this video. And if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe, Story Store. And please share your thoughts about this story in comment section. The grand chandelier sparkled above as champagne glasses clinked, but the noise faded when she entered. Every head turned, and the room fell silent in awe. Beside billionaire Kevin Grant, she was a vision in a midnight blue gown, her silky hair cascading down her shoulders, her eyes radiating confidence. She wasn't just stunning, she was his maid. Kevin had never seen her like this. She was always in plain clothes, quietly tending to his home. But tonight, she was someone else. Someone who commanded attention without saying a word. Whispers spread through the crowd. Who is she? A princess? A model? Kevin couldn't answer. He didn't know who she was anymore. Victoria, a friend of Kevin's, approached with a jealous smile. Are you familiar with international trade laws? Kevin's a genius in business. You must know all about it. The maid smiled politely. Of course. The complexities vary by region, but the key is understanding bilateral agreements, not just import duties but non-tariff barriers. Silence followed. Victoria's face fell. The crowd was stunned. Kevin's heart raced. How did she know that? She continued calmly. Kevin once mentioned expanding into Southeast Asia. Local regulations are key in tech sectors. Victoria stammered, I suppose you know a lot for someone new. The maid smiled. I like to learn. Kevin was floored. Who was she really? The evening blurred as he became consumed with questions. He followed her, determined to uncover the truth. Kevin followed her through the lavish ballroom, his mind racing. The woman he had known for years as his quiet maid was no longer just that. Her knowledge of business and effortless elegance hinted at something deeper. He found her standing by a large window, her silhouette framed by the city lights, lost in thought. Why didn't you tell me? Kevin asked, his voice soft but filled with curiosity. She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. What do you want me to say? You never asked. Kevin took a step closer, his gaze intense. You're not just a maid. Who are you really? She sighed, gathering her thoughts. I didn't want you to see me differently. I wanted you to know me for who I am, not for what I could be. Kevin's heart tightened. But you're not just anyone. You've been hiding something. Her eyes softened. I chose this life, Kevin. I chose to live in the shadows. You'll understand why, but not now. He stepped closer, his voice thick with emotion. I want to understand now. Before she could respond, a voice interrupted. Kevin! Victoria stood in the doorway, her gaze sharp. I need to speak with you about the merger. Kevin turned away, frustration mounting. He glanced back at the woman, but she had already vanished into the shadows, leaving him with more questions than answers. The days after the gala passed in a blur for Kevin. His thoughts were consumed by her, by the woman he had known for years but never truly seen. Every time he tried to focus on work, he found himself wondering what she was hiding and why she had kept her distance. She, in turn, continued her work with quiet efficiency, but Kevin noticed the subtle signs, her avoidance of his gaze, the slight tremor in her lips when he came too close. There was more to her than she let on, and he needed to know what it was. One evening, he found her alone in the kitchen, sipping tea. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice gentle. She hesitated but nodded. "We can talk, but there's not much to say." Kevin sat across from her, his gaze unwavering. "You've been hiding something. I need to know what it is." She sighed. "You wouldn't understand. You've always seen me as nothing more than your maid." "That's not true," he replied. "I see you, the woman behind the mask. There's more to you." Her eyes darkened. "I'm the daughter of a business tycoon. I left that world behind to escape the pressure. I chose this life. But now, I wonder if it was the right choice." Stunned, Kevin reached out, taking her hand. "I want to know all of you. You're so much more than you think." Her uncertainty lingered, but she nodded. "Once you know, there's no going back." "I'm sure," Kevin said firmly. The next few days were a blur of contemplation for Kevin. He couldn't stop thinking about her, a maid, yet the daughter of a business tycoon. Why had she chosen this life of anonymity? The more he pondered, the more he understood. She had craved freedom, a life outside the shadow of her family's expectations. One evening, Kevin decided to confront her. He waited in the library, knowing she'd come in soon to help with paperwork. When she arrived, he motioned for her to sit. "I need to know everything," Kevin said softly, his gaze serious. She took a deep breath, then spoke. "I never wanted to lie, Kevin, but I was scared you'd only see me as a rich girl. I wanted to be more than that." Her voice trembled as she continued. "I ran when I was 18. I wanted a life on my terms, not one dictated by my father's empire, but it's been harder than I thought." Kevin's heart ached as he listened, finally understanding the weight of her choices. He reached out, taking her hand. "I see you, not as someone's daughter, but as you. I'm not afraid of your past. I want to be a part of your future." The following weeks were filled with both connection and uncertainty. Kevin's admiration for her grew as she shared more of her story, but the shadow of her family loomed large. The letter from her father only deepened her inner conflict. She sat quietly, staring at the letter. "I don't want to open it," she said, her voice a whisper. Her fingers trembled, betraying her calm exterior. Kevin took the letter and read it aloud, an invitation from her father to reconcile, to come home. "What do you want to do?" he asked, his tone soft. She sighed, her thoughts swirling. "I don't know. I've spent so long running, but I'm not the same person anymore. I'm scared to face them." Kevin sat beside her, offering comfort. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you. You don't have to go back just because of this letter." She leaned against him, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. "Maybe it's time to stop running," she murmured. Kevin wrapped his arm around her. "You're not alone. We'll face whatever comes, together." Claire stared at the mansion, its towering presence a reminder of a life she had long left behind. The unopened letter lay heavy on her heart, but today she knew she had to face the past. Kevin, standing beside her, gently squeezed her hand, offering silent support. "Are you sure you're ready?" he asked softly. She nodded. "I need to know if there's something left to salvage." The next day, they stood at the mansion's door, her father emerging with a mix of regret and hope in his eyes. "Claire," he said, his voice filled with tentative emotion. "I didn't think you'd come." Claire's heart raced as memories flooded back, but Kevin's steady presence calmed her. "I came," she said, her voice steady, "but I don't know what to do now." Her father took a deep breath, his eyes flicking to Kevin before returning to her. "I want to make things right. I know I can't erase the past, but I hope we can rebuild." Kevin stepped forward, his voice firm but kind. "It's not about forgetting the past, Claire. It's about letting go of the fear." With a final glance at Kevin, Claire whispered, "I think I'm ready to try." "Then let's go together," Kevin said, his heart full of pride. Over the next few weeks, things began to settle into a new rhythm. Claire's meetings with her father became more frequent, though they were often difficult and emotionally charged. Kevin was there for her every step of the way, providing her with the strength and stability she needed to face the past she had so long avoided. But there were moments of healing, too. Small moments where she saw her father's remorse and genuine desire to make amends. Slowly, their relationship began to shift, and while it wasn't perfect, it was real. Claire knew there was still much to uncover about her family, about her past, and about the person she had become. But with Kevin by her side, she felt more certain than ever that she could face whatever came next. She had already begun building a new life, one that was hers, one that wasn't defined by the expectations of her family or the fear of returning to the world she had left behind. And with Kevin's love and support, she knew she was capable of so much more than she had ever believed. As the weeks turned into months, the two of them found themselves closer than ever before, navigating this new chapter of their lives hand in hand. Claire wasn't sure where the future would take them, but for the first time she felt ready to embrace it, without fear, without regret, and without the weight of her past holding her back. It had been months since Claire began reconnecting with her father, but something about it felt off. She trusted Kevin implicitly, yet doubts lingered in her mind about her father's sincerity. One evening, as they sat together, Claire voiced her concerns. "Have you noticed anything off about him lately?" she asked quietly. Kevin, ever perceptive, met her gaze. "What do you mean?" Claire hesitated. "It's like he's hiding something. I don't know what, but it feels like there's more to his story." Kevin's expression softened. "If something feels wrong, trust your instincts." With Kevin's support, Claire hired a private investigator. Weeks later, the investigator returned with devastating news. Her father had been involved in shady dealings, including embezzlement and fraud. But the most shocking revelation was about her mother's accident. It wasn't an accident at all. It had been orchestrated, and her father was involved. The weight of the truth hit Claire hard. Her father, the man who had promised to protect her, had caused the tragedy that tore their family apart. Overwhelmed, she whispered, "I don't know what to do with this." "You don't have to decide now," the investigator said. "But you deserve the truth, Claire." Claire's heart ached as she faced the truth. Her father had orchestrated her mother's accident. The lies he had told, the betrayal that had torn their family apart, it was all too much. She knew she had to confront him. That evening, Kevin, concerned by her demeanor, asked what had happened. "I was right," Claire whispered. "My father planned it. It wasn't an accident." Kevin's expression hardened, his support unwavering. "What will you do?" "I need answers," she said, determination settling in her chest. "I need to face him." The next day, Claire stood in her father's office, anxiety threatening to overwhelm her. When they came face to face, her father's stoic expression cracked for a moment, but Claire didn't back down. "I know what you did," she said, her voice firm. Her father's guilt flashed in his eyes before he tried to explain. "No," Claire interrupted. "There's nothing to explain. You betrayed me." As the truth came pouring out, his role in the accident, the years of lies, Claire felt the weight of the past lift. She wasn't alone, with Kevin by her side. For the first time in years, she was free from the burden her father had placed on her heart. The truth hung heavily between Claire and her father. His confession, full of guilt and regret, did nothing to undo the years of hurt. Claire stood firm, no longer willing to hide in the shadows of lies. "You thought keeping me in the dark was protecting me," she whispered, her voice thick with anger. "You destroyed everything I loved, including my mother." Tears spilled over, but they weren't sorrowful. They were freeing. Kevin stood by her side, silently supporting her. Her father, slumped and broken, confessed, "I was wrong. I thought I could fix everything, but I lost control." Claire's voice was steady. "I'm not that little girl anymore. I won't be controlled by your lies. I need to move on." Her father's eyes filled with regret, and he murmured, "I'm sorry." Claire, resolute, turned away. It was time to heal, time to step into the light and leave the past behind. Weeks passed, and the weight that once suffocated Claire began to lift. With Kevin by her side, she rebuilt her life, freed from the painful truth about her father. Their relationship had deepened, evolving from shared pain to love, and they were now a family united in hope. Claire's relationship with her father remained strained, but she no longer depended on him for her identity. Her true family was the one she had chosen: Kevin, her son, and those who stood by her without question. One evening, as they sat on the porch of their new home, Claire felt a rare peace. The past no longer held her captive. "I don't know where we'd be without each other," Claire whispered, resting against Kevin's shoulder. Kevin smiled. "You'd be just fine, but I'm glad we don't have to find out." Together, they embraced their new beginning, knowing they could face anything ahead.